The Haka, that dance, a lot of fun. Pretty impressive, actually, to be stood on the other side. They don't make happy faces like they want to kill you. But in actual fact, it has a real serious connotation, and people should realize that. And what is that connotation? It is conflict, and all armies going right back to the Roman armies, back to Persian, back to Babylon, back to all these things. Greece try to frighten the living daylights out of the people by slamming their swords and jumping up and down, thumping the earth, marching forward in full procession, which are all sort of dances, you know. And now we've got a dance going on today between the Islamic world and the Christian world, and we've seen some terrible situations going on where our soldiers should have been safe. They've allowed these Islamic people in because some people are conducting an experiment. And the experiment says that we can in actual fact trust these people. I'm not saying that a lot of Islamists aren't very good people. I mean, quite frankly, I know a lot of them. We talk to them. But we have a problem where we've got this sort of extremism. And you say extremism, well, the whole of the Quran is extreme. And if you say that I'm talking rubbish, then listen to a man called Ayatollah Khomeini. He said that it was. He said it was a war book. He said it had many verses injuncting war on its people. So that's not according to me. I'm just the reporter in this situation. If you were listening to Blair and Brown and all these people, Khomeini said these people are ignorant because they haven't read the Quran. That's why they don't know the situation. So you've got leaders who are ignorant. They're even ignorant of their own Bible, because if they in actual fact were studying the Bible, they would change their policies immediately. But they don't know the Bible, they won't listen. So we're going down the road that all of us who've done any study of this book, and I've done a lot, sit here sort of jaw dropped down by my toes, watching everything happen. I've been watching it for 40 years now, and everything it says is coming true. And here we've got a terrible situation where we've now had 13 Americans and 30 injured. We've had 5 British people murdered yesterday on the 5th of November. And I don't know how many injured. They don't ever mention the injured. I was just doing the proportion between the American lot. I should say that we're looking at about, if we're looking at that, we're probably looking at about 7 or 8 or 9 were injured on top of that, although the British Army doesn't acknowledge the injured for some unknown reason. You know, so we in actual fact have got a terrible situation going on here, where they say, well, it's all coming from Afghanistan. Well, you know, men who know better than I do, and were on television this morning, saying, in actual fact, since 9/11, we've never had an attack from Afghanistan. Never had an attack from Afghanistan. Yes, it may have been coming from Pakistan, some of the plans, but definitely we know for a fact that the men who in actual fact blew up the airport in Scotland, blew up the buses in London and the tube in London, etc., all were homegrown. So the problem is within the country. And, you know, we have become the terrorist capital of the world. I mean, it's a terrible situation that we've allowed ourselves to get into through weakness of our leaders. Our leaders are weak. They're scared of being called something. Well, you know, what I'm saying here is not racist, because a race is a group of people of different color, different skill, color, etc. I'm talking about a religion. I don't hate the Islamic religion, but you've got to face facts. We have a problem. We have a problem. You're putting fire and water together. That's what you're doing. You're putting fire and water together. The one hates what we're doing, and our men are trying to get on with it, and we're getting killed. We're trying to reset up a country, apparently, which originally was just to stop terrorist attacks, and now it's rebuild the country. This is what they call Operation Creep. And, you know, men who've been there sort of say, well, you know, not much building's going on, so I don't know what they're doing there, but we are selling a lot of bullets, a lot of guns to the British people. You know, but on top of this, of course, the British people are supposed to be funding all this, trying to earn a living for the country, paying 40 million a day to Europe. That's 14 billion a year. Now they've increased it to 14 by another 4 billion. That's about 18 billion a year, because Europe needs more money. Why do they need more money when the auditors tell us that 95% of the budget is missing? That's not me. 95% is unaccounted for. That's what they're saying. That means they can't tick it off. They can't check it. It's not there. And 4 men who did this, they managed to get 185 signatures to check up on a particular expense in Europe, found no audit trail, found no papers, found nothing. Millions had disappeared. Now, I've got into something else here, but it's all part of the same thing. Our country is heading for disaster. You know, some men here wrote a book called, it's over there, it's called The Great Reckoning. And that was written by Dale and Rees-Mogg, which you probably all recognize. Now, Rees-Mogg wrote that book to tell us, and he warned us from 1993 when that book was written, what was going to happen. And what we've got now is, and he said it would start happening in 2000. Well, you know, all this expense and all these sales and everything else didn't happen overnight. I mean, it happened over about 10 to 12 years. Where was Brown over this time? Fast asleep at the switch. Surely somebody should have gone and said, what are you spending all this money on? What are you doing? You know, the proportions are too high. It's more than the whole country's got. And they're just going to give another 50 billion. They gave another 30 billion a couple of months ago. And so it carries on. The total they've given to the banks now is 1.35 billion. And then they've got all the loans he's going to take over the next 4 years, which mounts that amount up to 2.45 trillion. So when you see 275 billion, that means that is what is going to have to be paid back annually. Now, that is on a GDP of about 2 trillion. So he's spending probably more, about 12% of the GDP, just on repaying the banks. And we paid the money to the banks. I mean, this is ridiculous. We give the money to the banks, we're paying the banks. I mean, how ridiculous. You know, and we're forcing British government, British troops together with people who hate what we're doing. I mean, this is an experiment on a crazy scale, actually. And this is not racial, it's bloody practical. You can just see it happening. Any event, the businesses that I am in, a number of businesses. This one up here is tea fuel cells, and you know, they can save money. It's another example of something being held down because it's not convenient for the government. The government wants the taxes, and 80% of the value of petrol is taxes in this country, and for diesel. Now, isn't that ridiculous? Whereas you can put a fuel cell in, chuck some water in, and it will produce 8,000 litres of Brown's gas, which can help power your car for a fraction of a penny. I'm talking about a fraction. It means it's 0.0002 of a penny. That's how little it is. Where a litre of petrol is probably costing 109 pennies now. This is costing 0.002 of a penny. That just shows you the huge difference. So why wouldn't you want to put these things in? But they won't tell you. You can't get on the press, etc. Thank you very much for listening. And you know, I'm just very disturbed about the way we're going, the way we've been handed over without any question, where they've tried to change, reconstruct the basis of this country, and they say, oh well, they didn't know. They were warned about it. They told us, you know, that they have just been absolute bounders, and you know, in actual fact, the Lib Lab Con has run its course as far as I'm concerned, and I don't support any other parties. I do not. I'm completely apolitical, but I honestly believe the people, the British people, to try and save the country, must reduce this Lib Lab Con to a very small proportion in their parliament, try to clear parliament as far as I'm concerned, with all the corruption that's been going on, and the fact that they've winked everything through on Europe, and they signed everything away, all our beliefs and stuff, and they've done everything they can to undermine our religious belief, etc. And there's all the laws that have been passed. That's all the stuff we've lost. We've lost foreign policy, criminal justice, sovereignty, labour laws, transport, defence, immigration, all handed over to a Catholic Europe, who's never been our friends. I've got lots of friends as Catholic, but I don't like what from the Pope, because he's a military power that actually did down the Soviet Union, managed to get rid of the Soviet Union. I applaud him for that, but quite frankly, it gives you some indication of the power of that man. Thank you very much for listening, and you know, vote for other parties, whether it be independents, whether it be UKIP, whether it be BNP. Couldn't care who you vote for, just vote for somebody else, so we can get this thing back on balance again, and see if we can't reverse this terrible situation we as a nation are getting into, and so is America. Thank you.